I can't help but look at that England team and I shake my head. I shake my head at Farrell at 12. And, there's been this suggestion that he's straitjacketing Marcus Smith a little bit. Where do you sit on that? What else are you seeing that you think, my golly, that's got to improve? Or what are we coming up to 12 months out now from a World Cup? There's work to be done for that England team.
I don't want to get too technical on the radio, but if anyone understands this, England look okay. There's all this shape out the back, this play out the back, the fancy stuff with, Farrell receiving the ball, pulling it back to Marcus Smith to give him time and space to make plays. But England looked their best when they actually went through Australia, when they played frontline. And the one time they actually played really direct and through them, they chipped away. Then Tom Curry made quite a big break and it came to nothing. So they didn't get paid off the back of it. And a good friend of mine who's currently injured, plays fly half, has played for England. I'm not going to give away any names here. So, I mean, I'll say George Ford gave me a text and said the boys need to play more direct and through them. And that's coming from him. So it's not even my own sort of analysis. It's from a fly half. But England look good when they're far more direct, because if you look at the team that they picked, they've got the big lumps in there. You got Courtney Laws at 6. You got Billy Vunipola back on the side. Maro Itoje, Johnny Hill. They aren't renowned ball carriers, but every time they got the ball, they were making yards. Alice Genge will always fight and make yards. But I think that was telling. There was too much sort of play out the back, trying to create stuff, and it looks good. But England look good when they're direct. They stick to what I would see English rugby identity is: good set piece, nice and direct, ferocious defence, good kicking game. But all this attack just seemed a little bit fluffy, and it didn't lead to anything.
I'm interested, Dylan, you might laugh at this, you might scoff at this. I always am interested, certainly around the international periods, to read the column of Sir Clive Woodward. I won't name the newspaper that he writes that for, but he does have a column. And what he's been bemoaning, not just in the last few internationals, he's actually, in fairness to him, he's been consistent to this. He feels that the players are there, but Eddie's not getting his selection right. He feels that Eddie is still mixing and matching. He's not quite settled on the 15 that Clive feels is evidently there to take this England team on. Do you agree with that assertion?
I'm not sure. Clive says so. He's got to retain that column somehow. So he's always going to fire a few grenades out there, But it has been one of his themes, I suppose, in his analysis over the years is his team selections. I suppose, playing to what I just said previous, it's picking a team that plays to how you want to play.
Yeah.
And I think when England had the sort of team that they had at the weekend, they're really kind of big bruising ball carriers. They should play to that strength for 80-90% of the game. Whereas I think playing all this kind of fluffy stuff and creating the shape out the back isn't playing to their strengths. And if I'm honest, I thought they looked a bit gassed. They looked a bit tired in that game. I don't know if the travel had got them. But in terms of selection, going back to Clive's point, we can all pick our favourite players. We all want this player to play 10. Everyone wants Marcus Smith to play 10. And after the weekend, there's question marks over him, over one game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to be kind of wary of newspapers and people's opinion. And Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell, are they the kind of combination that are going to win a World Cup for England? If so, they need this sort of formative time to gel and do we look at long term or do we judge them on short term? And I'll tell you what, professional sport, we always judge short term. So I don't know. Has Eddie got a plan? I'm sure he's got an idea of how he sees his kind of World Cup final team in 18 months or a year's time. And he's kind of building towards that. But then, selections, Henry Arundel that comes on, touches the ball for the first time, scores a wonder try. Where do you put him in the team, though? Do you put him at fullback and remove Freddie Stewart? But Sir Clive would say something like that. Freddie Stewart was immaculate at the weekend. So I'm not sure. Selection's always a tough one. We always want our favourite players in there,
Nice to see Danny. I did message Danny Kerr. Good lad. He's been over in this part a lot. I like him a lot. He was chuffed to bits to get back in. Got to argue his form has deserved that recall to the side. Are you in favour of Danny being back in that team? And did you feel that he covered himself in distinction?
Yeah, I think he did it. If you look at the strengths of, say, Marcus Smith and what makes him tick every week, it's the guy that obviously gives him the ball every week, and that's Danny Kerr. And I think in that position at 9, being a little general, if you look at the Premiership final, Richard Wigglesworth, nearly 40 years old, starting that game. The fact that Danny's still playing, he's the same age as me. We played all our youth rugby together. It's a less attritional position, and the longer that you're in it, I suppose your experience, and why Ben Youngs has been around for so long, your experience is invaluable. So I thought it was great to see him back there after 4 years. And I'm not going to lie, when I got the Dubai Sharks role, he did send me the kind of eyes emoji saying, do you need a skills attack coach? So maybe in a few years, we'll see if Danny wants to come out to join us. We're not sure. But no, chuffed to see him back, honestly.
Watch the space on Danny. I think it wouldn't take 2 invites to get him over here when he's done and dusted in the game. Let's get to it then, Dylan. We've danced around it, spoken to an awful lot of England fans in the last 48 hours. Let's put this to bed. When you were on the show, you spoke eloquently about the strengths of Eddie Jones. You made no secret of the fact that Eddie is someone who's had a huge impact in your career in a positive way. Let's just call it what it is now. If England do go on to lose this series 3-0, which is a possibility, you mentioned Brisbane, they then go into the third test, they may be 2-0 down, they may be shattered mentally, physically. Eddie Jones is going nowhere before next year's World Cup, is he?
No. I think, if you strip back my clear bias towards Eddie, because I had such a kind of good time, well, it was a torrid time, actually, if I'm honest, but he got a lot out of me, and we were very successful with our relationship, which was great. And I've obviously worked with them, so I do have a bias. But even if we strip that out and just look at it objectively, why would you remove a guy 7 years in a row, a year out from the big stage? Because ultimately that's what he'll be judged on. And as long as he's got an understanding in that inner sanctum that that's what he's judged on, I think that's fine. But just for an example, I had 3 managers in my time. I had Martin Johnson, Stuart Lancaster, and Eddie Jones. Eddie's the first guy that's had continuity between a World Cup cycle. So, Martin Johnson's the first guy. Stuart Lancaster comes in, removes the whole backroom staff, removes all the players, the playing philosophy, the culture. Whereas Eddie's had, 7 years to kind of build that. And I think that's invaluable when you think about just turfing a player out. And the All Blacks, I can assure you, have been so successful because there's always been continuity in their culture. They've always promoted from within. So there's never wholesale change. It's just evolution instead of revolution. Yeah. So, I would, just to wrap that up quickly, in 2018, we'd won 2 Six Nations back to back. And then the third year we came 5th, which was like the worst in history. To have your fingerprints on that as an English player, and certainly myself as the captain, we don't talk about that. But a year later, this is what can happen in a year. England, blow the All Blacks off the park in a World Cup semi-final, and they fall short in a World Cup final. So, rugby's, a year in rugby's a long time and a short time, if that makes sense. A lot can happen. I was thinking about Andy Farrell, the Irish going out to New Zealand, the top dogs, they beat the All Blacks in the last few meets. Themselves and France is sort of the barometer in Northern Hemisphere rugby at the moment. But Andy Farrell's already, 2-0 down, one against the Maori and one against the All Blacks. It's, is it wholesale change if they lose 5-0 in New Zealand? I don't think we're calling for Andy Farrell's head, are we? It's a little bit of calm, a little bit of perspective, and just, big ticket is in a year's time at Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, listen, last few, I know you're a busy boy. I want to just kind of look back on last week on a couple more questions. Just to be clear then, Dylan, as a former captain, as a fan as you are now, as a pundit, you are still quietly confident, maybe not quietly, you're just confident that England will be ready come that World Cup next year.
Yeah, it's just time and growth as a team. And this is the best thing, right? You'd rather, as an England fan or any sports fan, your team lose in the short term for ultimate glory. The South Africans are still trading off. They've got 4 years to say that they're the best in the world because no one can contest that. So you got to take a little bit of short-term hurt and pain, and it's the hardest thing as a fan, I think. But you got to remember that the guys, they put it in physically. It's not like they don't care. That they're trying. They're there or thereabouts. It's just I look at this England team. They're just not quite clicking, and I think. This could take a little bit more time. There could be a little bit more sort of hurt as an English fan. But the big ticket stuff that we keep talking about, Rugby World Cup, that's ultimately where you want them to be on all, firing on all cylinders. So, look, straight after the game at the weekend, you saw young Jack Van Portfleet. just got his first cap, scored a try in the last sort of minute. And he referenced winning the series 2-1 twice in his post-match interview. So, the team's still very focused. They're talking about winning the next two. So, I don't think it's a dead rubber just yet.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Right off England at your peril.